Now, to further discuss the significance of Kim Jong-un's visit to Beijing, we have with us Professor Kim Han-kwon from the Korea National Diplomatic Academy. Professor Kim, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here.
So Kim Jong-un is now back in Pyongyang after his trip to Beijing. But during that trip, as the report we just heard, he visited the Academy of Agricultural Sciences and the Beijing Rail Traffic Control Center, among other places. What do you make of his visit to these places? It seems like he's already laying the groundwork for economic cooperation with China.
I think it is a little early to discuss about economic cooperation between the two countries because still international society is imposing the economic sanction over the North. But we can think of it if the two countries show to the international society that the subsequent, the frequent summit between the two countries and showing their economic and strategic cooperation that can be increased the two countries' bargaining power in future negotiation with the United States. But at the same time, still the international society imposing the sanctions against the North, but China and North Korea can find a way to detour the sanctions, then they can make economic cooperation, for example, tourism and those kind of agricultural technical exchanges. So this time, I'm very interested in that the cabinet premier Park Bong-ju was with the chairman Kim Jong-un. That means this time economic the agenda can be a very important issues under the summit between the two countries.
So you're saying it's not an economic cooperation as such, but just sharing of ideas perhaps about agriculture and railways and things like that?
Yeah, because it's, if there is any the easing sanctions against North Korea that permitted by the Trump administration, that can, right after the easing, probably China and North Korea can ready for the immediate economic cooperation, especially in agricultural and railroad work.
So it's his third trip to Beijing now, and for this time he stayed longer than the last previous two times. He stayed an extra day and he toured different sites rather than just meet with Xi Jinping. Now that tensions in the region are subsiding, is it inevitable that North Korea is going to have a better relationship with China and vice versa?
Yes, I think so, because as I told you earlier that if the two countries showing the economic and strategic cooperation to the United States, that both countries respectively increase their own bargaining power. For example, the North Korea now remain a very difficult task to discuss with the North Korea, with the United States. At the same time, China also have many issues between United States and China herself. For example, South China Sea issue, East China Sea issue, Taiwan issues, and even the trade negotiation between China and the United States. So the Chinese government also wants to increase their own bargaining power through the third summit with Kim Jong-un this time.
Kim Jong-un, as you said, it's his third visit, but do you think it's now time for Xi Jinping to go to Pyongyang maybe?
I think so, because it is highly possible, because already the chairman Kim Jong-un visited Beijing 3 times. And I think this is, now it is the President Xi Jinping's turn to visit Pyongyang. But we also think of it, probably in September, there will be held Russia's 2018 EEC, Eastern Economic Forum. In that case, probably not only bilateral summit, but also trilateral summit among Russia, China, and North Korea, can be possible.
But I guess, and then you're saying timing could be a bit of an issue of when Xi Jinping would go to Pyongyang, I guess.
Probably end of this year, or there will be some choices like the important political occasion of North Korea. But the Chinese government never, the top leader visited or attended the North Korea's own political events, political occasion. So probably we don't know, but end of this year, probably it will be a best time to meet again.
How big a deal would it be if Xi Jinping goes to Pyongyang? Just understand, because he doesn't really travel that much. And then would it matter if he didn't go?
Oh, I think it does not really matter between the two countries, because if the current 3 times of a summit between the two countries, that does not mean the two countries, the strategic trust has increased, but they need each other's, they need each other because they need to increase their own strategic influence over the Korean Peninsula. So whether they meet or not, the summit will be held end of this year or not, even President Xi Jinping visited Pyongyang or not, it doesn't matter. The two countries need each other strategically to cope with U.S. Huge influence over the Korean Peninsula.
So Kim Jong-un has met with Xi Jinping now multiple times, but he's also now started to make a relationship with President Trump of the US, having that summit last week. He seems to be building relations on both sides. But how difficult, what kind of challenges do you think there'll be for Kim Jong-un to maintain that kind of relationship with both sides?
Frankly, it is a very difficult job for Kim Jong-un because now the US and China is under very intensified strategic competition in the region. So probably the Chairman Kim Jong-un will be very difficult to satisfy China and the United States at the same time. But we have to think of it. His grandfather, Kim Il-sung, was used the former Soviet Union and China's relationship competitions. During the competitions of the two big superpowers in the communist bloc, the Kim Il-sung, North Korea's paramount leader, used those competitions and he increased his own, North Korea's own interest. In my understanding, Kim Jong-un also applying those pendulum diplomacy between China and the United States at the moment.
He seems to be making, Kim Jong-un seems to be making good signs towards the US at the moment. For example, he's moves at least on one of the parts of the June 12th declaration, which is the repatriation of the remains of the missing in action, the MIA soldiers from the Korean War. Expected to happen within the next few days, according to reports from the US. But how significant a step is this by Pyongyang?
I think it is a very significant and meaningful step to build up trust between the two countries. For example, this is a very meaningful step not only to the Trump administration, but also to the U.S. society. U.S. citizens always eager to bring each single of remains of the U.S. soldiers. They can battle for the U.S. The values in every corner of the world. So this time, it can be a very meaningful message from Pyongyang to the U.S. citizen directly. But I hope this time there will be no tricky issues on the returning remaining U.S. soldiers, because before it happened, but that time the North Korean asked the rewards, and even they got reward, but they
asked for
mingled.
cash, right?
Right,
they asked for money to
That's
repatriate these soldiers.
Right, but they mingled with animal the bones with the remains of the U.S. soldiers. That can be very disappointed. If it will happen, there can be a very backdrop from the U.S. citizen. So I hope this time will be a very normal way to process.
Yes, I guess if it happens like that again this time, it would be 2 steps back from everything the step forward they've taken to try and build this relationship with Trump. It would be an insult almost.
Right.
But are you actually surprised about how quickly North Korea has acted to get these remains, to try and get these remains back to the US? Are you surprised at all how quickly they've been moving? Because in the past they would have dragged their feet maybe, but this is within a few days. Everything seems to be rolling. It seems to be, and it could happen within the next few days.
I think it is one good example of North Korea's pendulum diplomacy. After June 12 summit with President Trump, after 1 week, around 1 week, the chairman Kim Jong-un visited and held a summit with President Xi Jinping. But at the same time, even though he visited Beijing this time, but at the same time, the chairman Kim Jong-un showed his goodwill to the U.S. society that is returning the remains of the U.S. soldiers. So it is a very typical of the pendulum diplomacy works.
So right now, swinging towards the good relations with the U.S. for now, I guess.
Right, even though he close to the one big country, but at the same time, he protect the other side's country's interest or needs.
So returning the remains was one of the points of the June 12th declaration, but perhaps one of the more bigger ones is still about denuclearization.
Right.
And Washington last week hinted that talks with North Korea would continue this week, but it hasn't happened yet, and it looks like it's not going to happen this week. What do you think about the fact that it's not happening this week? Should we be concerned that talks are already stalling at this point?
In my understanding, it is a kind of a war of nerve between the two countries. It's a push and pull in South Korean expression. Probably the chairman Kim Jong-un first discussed about core agenda and the result of the summit between Kim Jong-un and President Xi Jinping. Based on the result, China and North Korea probably will discuss and coordinate their own strategic interest of the Korean Peninsula. So for Kim Jong-un first discuss with President Xi Jinping. And second, it is a very hard task remained. The first of all, in the big picture, probably it is comparatively easy to reach an agreement between Kim Jong-un and President Trump. But the left issues, that is verifying process and even the irreversible process, it can be a very difficult issues. So probably Kim Jong-un need more time to concern about it, consider about it.
Do you think both sides are still considering things?
Probably U.S. already ready for the fast track and fast discussion with North Korea, but North Korea need time to consider more carefully this time.
I guess North Korea are feeling the pressure a little bit from considering everything that's going on with the U.S.
Yes,
well.
And even though they want to, China works some key player role that can increase North Korea's bargaining power in future negotiation with United States.
Yes, that's all we have time for, I'm afraid. Thank you for coming in today and sharing your insights with us.
Thank you very much.